keep your phones on silent. I believe our last session was quite enriching and worth inspiring. It is my privilege to welcome a distinguished guest to our stage today. I am pleased to introduce Ms. Manjula Bharathy, the Dean of the School of Habitat Studies at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, as well as a professor at the Center for Urban Policy and Governance. Ms. Bharathy possesses extensive experience spanning nearly 3 decades in teaching, research, and active engagement with issues concerning decentralized governance, subaltern and decolonial citizenship, and marginal subjectivities. She has served as a Fulbright Research Scholar in Gender Studies at Rutgers University in the United States. Additionally, she held the position of Chief Operating Officer at the state level for the Kudumbashree Mission, which is recognized as one of the largest community-based organizations globally, comprising 4.2 million women members, under the government of Kerala's Poverty Eradication Mission. Her academic credentials include an MPhil in Applied Economics from the Center for Development Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University, as well as a PhD from the Mass Communication Research Center at Jamia Millia Islamia in New Delhi. Furthermore, she has served as the faculty in charge of the postgraduate diploma program in development praxis for Kudumbashree members in Kerala. Today, Ms. Manjula will be presenting her expertise on the critical theme of gender and the public sphere. Please join me in offering a warm welcome as she takes the stage to share her insights.
Good morning. Yeah. So today, I think you had one session and I could see that the students might have gone outside to have tea and most of the chairs I see vacant. I hope the students will be coming. Now, like today's session that we are trying to look at is on engendering public sphere, and where I'm trying to understand Kudumbashree as a counter-public. And I've been asked by your esteemed professors here that I need to keep my theory at a lower base and try to bring more practical examples so that, okay, because as a person who is always teaching postdoc students and the researchers, I'll be little talking something sometimes on a theoretically high basis, but if I am talking which you are not able to comprehend, please stop me then and there. I'll try to make it simple. Yeah, I'm a little worried about this. Yeah, so can we start with your all permission? Yeah? Okay, so now, we are going, like, who is changing the slides over here? Yeah, please, thank you. Yeah, so now when we are looking at it, the basic understanding of your topic or your conference is public sphere. So I hope you understand the difference between a public space and a public sphere. Is there any difference? Is there any difference? Like, don't be so formal, we can be very interactive. Is there any difference between a public space and a public sphere? Is there? So can you tell me an example of a public space? Yeah? This is a public space. Any public, can any public come over here? Any person? But registered, no? So there is a criterion, right? Yeah? So can it be called a public space, or it a space which is there, it's entirely a secluded public space? Or is it a common public space? But then if you're looking at a park, it is a space. You don't have to register anything. you can access the public space, you can access a mall, and there is all those are public spaces, right? But there is a difference between public space and a public sphere. Public sphere, it is one of the concepts that has been taken by the Frankfurt School, media studies students. You may be knowing about the Frankfurt School. It speaks about how and why the industrialization of media started coming in. That is the Frankfurt School, which is, like basically have Adorno, Horkheimer, and Habermas. Trio in the Frankfurt School, That is 3 stalwarts. And here, public sphere is basically being given by Habermas. And then, when he discussed about the public sphere, he was looking at the way in which the media is changing the spaces, and how important is the media in looking and deepening democracy, in changing the democratic discourses. Then, the whole question of he coined the term public sphere, and he gave 4 important criterion for the public sphere. 1, it should be, like I said, it should be admissible to everyone, which should not be bracketed by any social inequalities. Like if you're belonging to class, caste, gender, or ethnicity, you should not be restricted your admission into that space. That is 1. Second one, you should not be discussing about your private interest, but you should be discussing about a public interest which should be of interest to the society. Third one, the moment you are entering into the public sphere, you should be able to engage in dialogue. What does dialogue means? Interaction. But I am interacting with you right now. No, is it a dialogue? Right now I am interacting with you. Is it a dialogue? A two-way communication. This is a two-way communication, right? So, but a two-way communication dialogue, when you're saying about as a communication students, there is one thing, no? This is a group communication, right? A two-way communication with a group communication. Dialogue means what? It is coming from which form of communication? There are 4 forms, right? Intrapersonal, interpersonal, group, and mass, right? So, the moment you're saying about dialogue, it is coming from an interpersonal communication. 2 or 3 persons, where suppose you are discussing with your friend, and you're conversing with your friend, and your third person entering, then you don't know who started the conversation, who is the source, who is the receiver. So in a communication framework, you have a source, message, channel, noise, receiver, and then the noise, right? And feedback, right? So SMCR, and it works. Source, message, channel, receiver, feedback, and the noise, right? And then in this communication, in a dialogue, then you don't know who is the source and who is the receiver. There's an interchange between a source and the receiver continuously. That makes the communication an egalitarian process. When I'm standing here, everyone knows that, okay, I take the control. Source has a privileging power. Receiver as little passive, even though there is interaction. But when you're having a conversation with your friend, there is no power play there. Are you getting the point? So that is the public sphere means you should be able to engage in a dialogue without any power coming into the picture. So even if you're belonging to a scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, or a socially excluded group, or women, you should be able to engage in a dialogue, which is very important. So these are the criterion Habermas is saying about to be a public sphere. So public sphere means it needs to be having all this criterion that is important, which is says, that power was to be excluded, inequalities to be bracketed, and then consumption. And now one of the things that how the media becomes important, like we understand media is an industry, but it is different from other industries. Why? Consumption of the media also produces. If I take a toothpaste today, toothpaste is not producing me. But if I consume the media, media is also producing my identity, who I am, how I am positioned, what I am going to talk, and what are the kind of ways in which I construe and construct my identity. So media is also producing me. So that makes media quite different and important when we are discussing about the discourse. Next slide, please. So now, the moment, like this is the time when the industrialization of culture, that is something, Adorno, was given. What is the Frankfurt School? Basically, industrialization of culture, when the monopoly capitalist firms are having surplus capital in their hand, and they were looking for profitable avenues to invest their capital, and they found culture as a very interesting medium, and so they invested and slowly started the concept of industrialization of culture, one of the interesting things of a Frankfurt School. So there, you're looking at when you are industrializing the culture, when you are industrializing the media from a political economic perspective, production of the media, consumption of the media, and the allocation of the resources, which is the information, how that is being allocated, for what that is used, who is producing media, how the media is being produced, who is consuming the media, how the media is being distributed, to whom the media is getting, the voices in the media, all this started becoming important. And then he's saying about, public sphere that you're saying, like, he says, because you're looking at the French Revolution, you're looking at any form of revolution, they thought, one of the important things, coffee table discussions, coffee, tea, tea houses discussions. So the informal discussions very, very important in changing the contours of the society, changing the power dynamics of the society. And media played a very important part in starting this discussion, in making the public sphere more active. So now, Habermas was saying that through the industrialization, this public sphere is getting depoliticized. It is no more discussing about the public interest. It is no more discussing issues that is relevant to the people. You are started discussing, like while one of your friend, Hashil, was, taking me here, and he was discussing about one of the things that is happening about, a comedian, and how, like this whole things now discussion happening. I said I was not aware, but now the public sphere is discussing about it, the issue that has been taken to the Supreme Court. And how, so then what is the issue that we are discussing right now? Are we discussing about the severe poverty? Are we discussing about the ways in which the honor killing is happening? Are we discussing about, the service delivery that has been? I am working in the tribal colony. I am working in with the coastal community for the past 15 to 20 years. The issues these people are having, everyday governance issue the people are having, are we discussing about these development issues in the public sphere and making it? So he says the media is becoming depoliticized, apolitical, and then we need to redefine what is public interest. Public interest is no more the interest that is relevant to the society, but to a few handful of the people who are the elitist one. So in that perspective, I would like to take the engendering public sphere, because women are the group of people who are excluded, who are there in the margins, who are there in the fringes, who are not in the decision-making processes, who are being historically subjugated. So it is important to bring how and why women should form a part of the public sphere. That is what we are taking, that is the engendering public sphere. So engendering public sphere, for me, it's important from 3 perspectives, because they form more than 50% of the population. So any public sphere discourse that you're saying, you cannot ignore, you cannot avoid the 50% of the population who are there. You cannot make a discussion, you cannot make a decision without bringing them into the dais. And second, our women's experiences are different from men. So since it is different, that need to be discussed, that need to be deliberated, that need to be taken into the public sphere discourses. And third, men's and the women's interest, especially, I am a sociologist, and then I'm in the process of trying to make micro level planning with the community, especially right now I'm working with the climate change and adaptation with the micro level planning and with the marginalized community. So when women are planning their spaces, their interest, gender interest are quite different from that of the men. So it is important to bring that interest into the table. Next slide. So now, with this, understanding, we understand that a public sphere to be inclusive, because one of the important things is that there should be inclusion. For the public sphere to be inclusive, you need to have women into the public sphere. And then, but if you are including the women, what are the ways in which we are stereotyping women? We say that we need to have women, but how we are imaging and how we are imagining women. So, media images women, and that images imagine the social imagination. So it is important to see how the imaging of the media constructs the social imagination of the gender, and that is important. So how women are always shown as less authoritative, less active, less powerful, less rational, less decisive, and more concerned with youth and their attractiveness. That is what, a general imagining and imagination of the women. And women are naturally depicted as less intelligent and tend to have subservient occupations. You all know, when you have a movie that, a doctor will be definitely a man and a nurse will be a woman. A judge will be a man and the typist will be a woman. Officer will be a man and then the typist again, or clerk will be a woman. So any person who is holding the positions of power will be men, and if women are holding the positions of power, then they should be either an iron lady. It cannot be a woman. You have to have certain adjectives for that, You cannot be a common woman, Women to hold positions, then it should be iron lady. Or like in Indira Gandhi, only one man in the cabinet. You have to have the masculine character to be a powerful woman. That is why, women cannot be powerful like that. Next one. So these are the stereotypes when we are thinking about it, that women's place is at home, women need to depend upon men, women do not make independent decisions, women view themselves and are viewed as sex objects, women is nothing but the body. That is what, like second sex, I don't know how many of you have read it, you are all budding students. When you're saying, it says that women is nothing but reduced to the uterus. I am nothing, That is the second sex, the very interesting book of Simone de Beauvoir starts with that. Women is nothing but reduced to a uterus. That is, what is the only role? It is reproduction. What is the only dharma? It is marriage. What is the only karma? To attract men towards them. Are you getting? So this is how you are imaging the nature of women. Next slide, please. So now, everyone knows that, okay, how you are. I'm not going, very interesting thesis and the research, especially in media, it says that how thin is beautiful. And recently, you know that even in Kerala, the place where I'm coming, 2 deaths happening because the girls of your age refuse to eat. Despite the medical, they want to be thin. So this how, this whole question is coming up. Next slide, please. Now I'll tell you about, one bit of theory, which, like very simple. It's a very, very complex theory, but I'll make you very simple. When you're saying about at least gender, there is a theoretician called Antonio Gramsci. He's an Italian thinker, very important person, especially in gender studies. And he's a Marxian thinker, and we call him a neo-Marxist, and I'm not going detail into it, because for my students, I take 1 semester on Gramsci. So I'm just taking one slide for you, and where I would like to say gender as hegemony. What is hegemony? Did you hear the term hegemony? You always say hegemonizing. Did you hear the term? Yes? What is it? Any idea? It is, hegemony is different from dominance. See, dominance means, there is always a coercion, of a physical coercion, This is a mental coercion.
Unsaid, like prerequisited, what do you call, power plays, like without even it being physical.
Yeah.
Just based on gender or class or...
Not based on gender,
Yeah.
I'll just say one simple ways to understand it. Hegemony is how an ideology becomes a common sense through continuous socialization. Ideology, you can be any ideology. Ideology means what? That is catering to the interest of the few dominant group. That is what Marx says, that ideology is false consciousness, because it's catering to the consciousness of the elite people and very few people, so ideology is problematic. So ideology that is catering to the vested interest of a few sections, elite sections of the society, through continuously socializing becomes a common sense. Example, patriarchy. Patriarchy is an ideology that tells you, what dress you need to wear, what job that you have to have, and who will be your partner, where you want to go for job, where you can access the public spaces, when you have to come back to the home, what should be your mobility. So everything of your life is being decided by the patriarchal norms and values, and through continuous use of that, it becomes my common sense. I'm not questioning. For example, when you're getting an invitation, marriage invitation letter at your home, it is written Mrs. and Mr. My husband's name is Krishna Kumar, so I'll get a letter, Mrs. and Mr. Krishna Kumar, where my name is not even there. I'm not, so I am becoming Mrs. Krishna Kumar. And that is, but nowhere, like even if my friend is coming and inviting, it is never like Mr. and Mrs. Manjula. There is, there is a smile at everyone, because it is not a normal. So ideology through the socialization becomes a common sense. So how then we need to, because gender is social, then how we need to deconstruct this new normal. That is becoming a normal. We are not questioning. That is ideology. That means we are accepting it as a normal way of life, and that is gender. All gender things that we are saying is that, that pativrita, kulina, everything, it's all constructs, social constructs. So then we need to look at that, all the gender division of labor. Domestic cause, immediately the image that comes to your mind is, father takes the bread and mother cooks the bread. So this thing started coming right from the school days, that you having a gender stereotype in your mind. So then you look at that, the gender division of labor. If you're looking at that fetching water, when I'm working in Rajasthan, it is natural that women have to bring in water. So the gender division of labor is quite natural, and so that is what we call as feminization of poverty. Because women are not having time. So time poverty, because they have to do the domestic chores, and I'm not getting time to develop my skills. So time poverty, I'm having skill poverty, I'm having educational poverty, I'm having choice poverty. All these things, makes me poor, and then you say that, okay, I cannot discuss with women because they don't know anything. You made me like that. The system made me like that. So that we call as the feminization. Poverty is not the deprivation of the economic thing. In today's world, when we call the rights-based discourse of development, today's development is based on rights. Rights to education, rights to information, right to food. So we are discussing on right-based discourses. Any denial of right becomes poverty. So that women have been denied of the rights, and so there is a feminization of poverty. Why? Because the denial of the rights becomes so that becomes a feminization of poverty. Next one. So gender, now as habitus. Again, these are only two theories that I'm saying. One is the Gramsci, and the second one is from Bourdieu, who says about, habitus. Bourdieu was speaking about habitus. We're saying, what is habitus? Again, I'm making it very simple for you. It is a social practices, cultural practices, economic practices, political practices. See, women, when you're having an economic practices, when men are going to sea to get the fishes, women will be the fish vendors. There's an economic division of labor, right? There's a gender division of labor. So then economic practices, it is different. Social practices, look at that, the way in which marriage, after marriage, woman goes to the husband's house. Husband is not coming to the woman's house. There's a social practice that has been hegemonized, normalized. So if you're looking at the social practices, Social practices of women is different from men. Economic practices is different from men. Cultural practices is different from men. Look at even the menstruation cycle that, how that spaces is being taken. The whole question of purity, pollution, So then so Habitus is looking at the multiple practices and how there is practices, gendered practices between men and women, and how it is important to look it into the public sphere. Yeah. So then, if you're looking at the binaries, it is important, public sphere, then it is, like again, I'm not going, Partha Chatterjee, one of the very interesting post-colonial thinker, was saying about, how it is interesting to look women as Khar Bahar. Who have to be in the Khar? That is women. Who have to be in the Bahar? That is men. Who should be in the private? That should be women. Who should be in the public? That should be men. So even the nationalism discussions and debates put that women, into the domestic spaces, into the inner spaces, into the private spaces, making the outer Bahar spaces meant for men, and then constructing the whole thing of this is feminine. If you are transcending that, then we have been told, you behave like a feminine person, like why? Then, then we'll say toxic femininity. Even, like instead of masculinity, there is also, because, now the new discourses, because the women are transcending, new type of cultural histories is also telling us that. So material, women are always spiritual, and men, going outside looking at are material. And gender division of labor and sexual division of labor, and visible and invisible. So it is important there in this thing, how should we claim these spaces which has been denied to us? By making you as a private person, by making you as a kharka person, by making you as a person into the domestic spaces, lot of things has been denied to women. How to claim this? By activating the public sphere. It is important. That is what we are saying about agency. That is what we are saying about resistance. And we'll see how Kudumbasri able to break these stereotypes and able to have constructing a new normal. Yeah, next one. Next slide, please. So this is what, this is something, some of the women who told me, like why. At 10, I started cooking for my father. So this is, like, I was having an ice-breaking session with a group of women, and I asked them to throw a figure which is familiar to them. All of them started throwing the male figures. So I asked them why. Why you are throwing the male figures? A 62-year-old Chellamma stood up and said, this is, At 10, I started cooking for my father. At the age of 20, I started cooking for my husband. At 50, I started cooking for my son-in-law. I'm 65 now, and I'm cooking for my grandson. I don't know the color and order of my tongue. This is what I'm saying about the invisibilization of women. I don't know what is even my order of tongue. In Mahabharata, Malika Sarabai was playing Draupadi, and she said, the decision, Swayamvara is mine, but the decision is my father's. Father has already taken the decision that how she should be married, but it is still called Swayamvara. So it is important to see that the kitchen belongs to women, but what should be cooked in the kitchen should be according to the taste of man. So even the domestic spaces that has been given to the women are there also controlled by the hegemonizing notion of men, hegemony, that we said habitus. For me, the most important achievement is that I got a space in home. We all think that okay, women are there in home, but women are invisible. No one takes them seriously. No one listens to them. No, she's not a part of the decision-making process. Now, she's getting a space. No one is here. I was doing the research studies of 9 states in India. And I used to go to these different states. And I know that afternoon is the time when women are free. So I used to knock at the door of the women. And then they used to open the door and says, in the language of that space, all the different places, So once when I was going, a Scandinavian researcher was with me. So she asked me the question that, why, Manjula, women coming, opening the door and says no one is here? So I thought that I'm a scholar of hegemony, Gramscian thing. I started realizing how women internalizes their own absence. No man will come, open the door and say no one is here. But women coming, opening the door and say no one is here unless she's made comfortable. So the internalization of one's own invisibility is what we call the hegemony. You know, so because the moment you're coming to the public spaces, you are invisible. So how to activate that is what? So coming from that, coming to Kerala, what the Kudumbasri has done to activate. These are the ways in which women were working. Now how it made the change. So the Kerala, if you're looking at this, only state we call, you know, like even when President Clinton, at that time when he was the president, he came and was discussing, he discussed only two things. One about the Kerala women, and second one was a religious leader in Kerala. So the Kerala women, because they are always been prized, because the Kerala development model, the women development is an important thing, because literacy rate is high, IMR is very low, MMR is very low, longevity is very high, marriage rate is very high. So if you're looking at that, then the Kerala model with the women development index is very high, because Kerala is always stands in the human development index. Next slide. But if you're taking some proxy variables, these are the conventional yardsticks like literacy, infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, age at marriage, then the enrollment ratio. These are the conventional yardsticks, conventional variables. But if you take proxy variables, like what is that working 99%, 96% of Kerala women are literate. But what is the working participation rate of women in Kerala? 20%, where in India it is 40%. Where are the educated women going? High suicide rate, increase in the morbidity, increase in the percentage of stress, increase in the crime rate against women. So if you're taking another variable, then you have to see that the status of women is not different. So what the Kudumbasri has done to change it. Next one. So this is Kudumbasri. Kudumbasri is, what is Kudumbasri? Kudumbasri is the state poverty eradication mission of the Kerala. All states will be having, but then Kudumbasri decided that you will make collectives of women below the poverty line and train them, skill them, and then making the interventions to reduce poverty. So if you're looking today, you look at this graph, so more than 50% of today's household, you will be having one Kudumbasri member. Not even a single ward in Kerala is without the Kudumbasri groups, Kudumbasri which is called the neighborhood groups. So every ward, every place of Kerala, you have the Kudumbasri groups. Yeah. So what makes this Kudumbasri different? Because the first thing, like I said, the poverty is not being defined on the economic terms. Any denial of the right becomes poverty. So if I am not having the freedom to move, I am poor. If I am not having the freedom to make decisions, I am poor. If I am not having the decisions, rights to take choices, I am poor. If I cannot decide which educational string and a job should I take, I am poor. So if I don't have the right of my body, I am poor. I don't have the reproductive right, I am poor. So if your rights are denied, then you are poor. So this is, one of the things that, we again started. That is something that, when I was a part of the Chief Operating Officer, we designed this in Kudumbasri, which now been replicated in 11 states in India and also in 5 countries outside India. So what is it? One is gender self-learning program. Whenever you have been trained, it is a self-training program. Your experiences teach you. I'll tell you one example. When I was, taking the classes, I asked the women to speak. And women are very intimidated to come and speak. They cannot speak. So I asked them how to make chutney. How to make chutney. So women all know how to make chutney. So they started speaking about chutney. So why then ask, who is always making the chutney? Women are. Why only you are making? Who are eating chutney? Everyone is eating. So from the politics of chutney, politics of gender division of labor, politics of unpaid labor, politics of domestic cause, and then the politics of invisible work, and then the politics of recognizing the invisible work. So then we started from the personal experiences. So your personal experiences started becoming your textbook. So gender is taught by their experiences. Next one. How much time I have?
10 more minutes, ma'am.
9:35 it is.
10:45.
10:45. Okay. What's the time now?
10:35.
Okay. Now we'll go a little fast. But this is it. Look at that, If you're looking at movies, so for you, like I thought, like you people will be very familiar with movies. So what are the usual stereotypes of women there? One, damsel in distress. Sleeping Beauty, everything you say is always the damsel in distress. Second one, hooker with a heart of gold. That is the second image of a woman. Third one, manic pixie dream girl. All Vijay Deverakonda movies, pictures, you see that what is the purpose of the women? Is basically to give a purpose to the man's life. Not beyond that. And psycho ex-girlfriend. And there is a movie by that name itself. Crazy ex-girlfriend. And then ugly duckling. Like you are not good, Cinderella type. You are coming, you are changing, and so then your life is being changed. So, but it is the basic thing of the women, and now we need to understand how to change the bias. Now, how Kudumbasri changed it? Looking at that. So when you're saying about agriculture, how you are imagining women? It is basically women as agricultural laborers. What Kudumbasri has done, I'm not going, there is a project called Joint Liability Groups, JLG, initiated by the Kudumbasri, where all the barren lands of the state of Kerala were taken by the state. That is leased by the state and given to the women to cultivate as a group and use the Narega money to make that place cultivable. So one way you're utilizing the Narega money, second one you are utilizing the barren land, third one you are enhancing the status of women from agricultural laborers to farmers. So the status of women, I'm an agriculture, no, I am a farmer. That changes the usual bias of women as the agricultural laborer to women as farmers. Next one. As entrepreneurs and not as consumers. Whenever we're looking at women, women are always the passive consumers. Now you have the micro enterprises intervention in Kudumbasri that train the women, start the women, and making them the entrepreneurs. And in COVID times, mind you, there are 450 community kitchens started by the Kudumbasri units that made Kerala different from other. All the migrant laborers were given food through the kitchens that has been prepared by the Kudumbasri entrepreneurs. And from where the vegetables are coming? From the farms that is cultivated by. So it's a circular economy that is functioning, changing the status, of women from as an entrepreneurs than a mere consumers, you can see. And now, in women as trainers, when you're saying about, I said it has been started in 11 states. In all places, women are the trainers. Gender self-learning. Women come, tell you the experiences. And then as the trainers, not as the listeners. Next one. Women as planners. All the micro-level planning is being initiated by women. So women as planners and not as beneficiaries. Next one. Gender stereotype. Whenever we are discussing about women, it is always male and female. But now, Kudumbasri has a transgender groups. Kudumbasri have the groups for elderly people. Kudumbasri has the groups for disabled people. Kudumbasri has the groups, for blind people. So, you are breaking the stereotype and forming the collectives to discuss their issues. Next one. Breaking. Look at that, Women are being trained, In Kerala is the land of coconuts. Kera, Kera is coconut. So that is Keralam. So now, women have been trained. This is a very difficult to get, So the women have been trained that. And very traditional things of Kerala, that is Panchavadyam. It is always used by men. Now women have been trained to do that. And taxi drivers. So breaking all the stereotypes and coming into the picture. Next slide, please. And then women becoming decision makers as CDS chairpersons, as a chairpersons of the local governance institutions. Now Kudumbasri, because of Kudumbasri, more than 60% of the elected representatives in local governance institutions are women in Kerala through Kudumbasri. So they are changing. So women are, that is what we called, I said, in my topic, counter public. That is public sphere, Hebama said. Counter public, Nancy Fraser said. Because the public sphere, it is not accessible to everyone. So you need to have women groups, you need to have tribal groups, you need to have, transgender groups, which can discuss their own issue, that is counter public. So what we need is not even public sphere, but one step ahead from that, that is counter public, and Kudumbasri is working as a counter subaltern counter public. Now, the last thing I would like to say about, another intervention, which is our project right now. Look at that. This is in Ernakulam. High tide flood, and look at the way in which the places has been devastated. Please run. Look at that. This is, the entire place is being, look at this. So, the whole group of something about 2 lakh people, the houses have been dilapidated, and then because of the high tide flood, and now 24/7 water into their houses and making their life problematic. And what we have done? So we have, we can skip it, we have trained the Kudumbasri women, and that is a 6 months training to make them their own maps, the community maps. Because right now what the experts are having is a technocratic map, technical map, but that is not showing which is the bridge that is not working, which is the canal that is overflowing, which is the sanitation system that is not working, where the water is not coming. So you have made, look at that, we trained women to make the maps of that particular panchayat. That gives the authorities very clear understanding what is the issue of the particular one. Next one. And now, second what we have done, we have trained women to make 2 to 3 minute small video. And then women started taking the video of the incidents that is happening. And then it becomes an evidence, empirical evidence, telling that this is what is happening to our homes. When the authorities are denying that no such things are happening, you are coming with an evidence saying that this is what happening to our nearby places, and women started making and changing the public sphere. And we started uploading that. And then, that is what I said, you are activating the public sphere with a counter public. So the public sphere is now started discussing more important issues that affect the livelihood of the people, and then you're making the women as active agents, claiming their spaces to activating the counter publics. So we can listen to the video. This is one of the video. Look at the quality of the video that has been made by women, and that, that says about what is the space. Look at the condition of the women, and look at that. It is a great person has made this video, mind. Look at the wall. This is the evidence. Look at the living conditions. No electricity, no water, dilapidated houses. Very aged woman here. You can understand that the electricity is not there. Look at the condition of the house. It's knee filled with water. like this, we've made something about 65 videos and then uploaded that into the YouTube and making that, engaging, activating the public sphere. Next slide. Then the next one we have done is a community theater. We ask the community to script their issue and perform that, and then that becomes a huge thing, and that community theater that has been scripted by them, community, under the supervision of a head of a school of drama in Kerala, now been selected as one of the 12 theaters that has been selected in the National Theatre Festival in Delhi, and they got the flight ticket for the first time. They flew to Delhi and performed that in Delhi before a while. And every time when they are discussing it, when they're performing it, people are all filled with tears, because it is directly the experiences are talking to you, not from the brain, but from the heart. So look at that, this is the street theater that, community theater that is performed by the people, and again making the public sphere active. Yeah, so this is the documentary. I would request, I can speak with Sharanya. This is the documentary that we have made of the process, which now been selected into the National Human Rights Festival of South Africa, and also into the Climate Change Discourse of University of Toronto, and also in LSE right now. Yesterday I got this information. So now we can also discuss. This is a documentary that discusses about climate resilience, life is told by women. Yeah. So now, last one, we can go. So what is important now for that, with my one of the last slides, is that what women know and how women live. Because they have the wisdom, they have the knowledge, but it has never been integrated into the life world. What we have done is that we are skilling them, capacitating them, and integrating their knowledge into the decision-making processes, and thereby activating the public sphere, thereby making the counter-publics of women groups more active, and making a change into the public interest discourses. Yeah? So this is important. What women know, how women live. So we are making a dialogue, conversation between these two. Yeah? So this is what, the last one. So now, this is the one we have now made a small group, that is Women in Climate Action Network. We can. So we believe that women can make a difference. We can, and now it is important because it's redefining the data. It's not that the technocratic masculine data that is coming, but the everyday experience of the women that is coming up. We are gender just transitions. Transitions are becoming gender just. We are revisiting the public sphere. We are reframing the methodologies. We are rewriting the knowledge. That is not most important. No? Whatever you are listening to a knowledge. Because this knowledge is always been produced by white, able-bodied men. Knowledge is being produced. That is we call epistemic violence. The knowledge itself is violent because it is being produced by the white, able-bodied men. It is not coming from the fringes. It is not coming from women. It is not coming from the subaltern group. So you need to have a epistemic justice, justice of knowledge, because the people on the fringes need to discuss about their story. We have to make history her story. History is the stories of power, his stories, and we have to make her stories. We need to have more her stories and thereby reimagining the marginals. This is what we need, from the politics of absence to the politics of presence to the politics of being, where women started having their agency, voice, and claiming their spaces, making a new subaltern counter-public in the discourse. Thank you.
Well, that was indeed an impactful and thought-provoking session, one that has actually challenged our perspectives. Due to time constraints, we won't be able to hold a question and answer session. So requesting you all to mail your questions to Manjula ma'am. And now I call upon Ms. Sharanya Tallur to please felicitate our guest.
Thank you so much. I would have loved the question answer session, but I always
So please fill up your feedback form for the second session and requesting you all to be seated as we'll be beginning with our next session very soon. So please don't leave the room. Okay, in 5 minutes time.